Welcome in. Mad Talk Sports episode 55. Drake, what's up?
What's going on? How's everybody doing? How are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. I told y'all like the pipe burst at work, so I got sent home a little early and means I'm working from the basement again tomorrow too. But hey man, sometimes pressure makes diamonds, sometimes it bursts pipes. So in this case, burst pipes.
All right. Joe
Yeah.
back at it again with the jokes.
That's not yeah, I guess that
It's a
constitutes as a
saying,
joke.
but I mean, it's a joke.
I guess so. Now let me get our banner up here. There we go. For episode 55, titled "The Future." Let me add it to the stage here real quick. Look at that blue.
The
Look at that blue.
future.
The future. And this was Drake, this was your idea to have the title as the future. And without over explaining here, in case you were wondering, the backdrop there, that's Silicon Valley, which is, if you don't know, that's where a lot of like tech innovations come from in recent years. So it's kind of like the future. So that's why I went with that. But beyond talking about the future, Drake, what you got?
Well, I was just gonna say that I love that you put Rasheed Rice in there.
Right?
He's a
I
dog.
was like, man, we got Love and Stroud, who obviously balled out. We're going to talk about him, but I was like, who else? And I'm like, Lamar's still the future. So is Mahomes. So is Allen. And I'm like, Rasheed Rice, let's go. And we'll talk about him later.
Oh yeah.
But overall, for the future, we got to first start in the past with talking about Wildcard Weekend, everything that went down, some of our usual action with like the medalists. We have breaking news for one of the teams that was recently bounced, but we will go through each of those games before discussing the future for some of the losers of last weekend, but also the winners and what we're going to expect moving forward for them too. So we got a lot of stuff here as always for NFL playoffs. This is it's my favorite time of year for Mad Talk.
We're in the thick of it. I mean, this is great, and the playoffs are great. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, I agree. The script couldn't be better. Actually, it could be. Less blowouts, please. How about some more good games? But the storylines are great.
Oh yeah, less. I mean, yeah, less blowouts.
They
We'll
set a
talk about
record.
it, but
It was a record. 5 of the 6 games this week were decided by 2 scores or more.
5. That's a record too.
Yeah. Didn't feel like it, so maybe that's what counts. But let's jump right into the week in review. Medalists, as always, and there's some deserving people in the crowd this week. Drake, kick us off with the bronze.
From bronze, I did what you hate. Had to go with 2. Couldn't decide. I couldn't decide. I had to drop 4 players on there for my medals, but I gave it to someone who's in the future, and that's Rasheed Rice.
Hey.
8 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown.
Yes, sir.
Playoff game. Dog. And then my other bronze, my co-bronze, went to Aaron Jones. 130 yards, 3 TDs. He was just unstoppable.
All right, so now I basically know we're going to have the exact same medalist card besides the fact that you added 2. Oh, okay. All right, well, Aaron Jones was first off my board, and my bronze was Rasheed Rice. So no wonder you liked him being on the presentation card, or the thumbnail, I think would be the better word for it. So,
see, yeah. I had Rasheed Rice in a lot of fantasy leagues this year. So I've been a fan.
See, I was always taking him in my mock drafts, and then I never ended up taking him. Same with Tank Dell.
Oh, Tank Dell. Yeah, that was tough, even though he got hurt. But
yeah,
I had him in a couple too.
Well, so that's so you had the co-bronze. I hope you don't have a co-silver too.
No,
but
no.
My silver is CJ Stroud, nearly perfect game, and doing it against the top 3 defense in the league. Not much to say besides that.
I know what you did, and I just didn't do that because we are going to talk about them later. So my silver, I gave it to Josh Allen, who shredded the Steelers for 4 touchdowns, 275 yards, and he just looked elite.
He did, and he took care of the ball.
Yep. Which, with Josh Allen, you could get 3 picks or 3 touchdowns. And, of course, we got the 3 touchdown Josh Allen, not the 3 pick Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I gave silver to Josh Allen.
Okay, fair. So I see what you did there. You knew we were talking Stroud and Love, so you kind of ignored them for this segment, basically.
Yep. Because for gold, I went Baker Mayfield.
I mean, he deserves it.
Who we've been vocal about, 350-plus yards and 3 touchdowns in a playoff game for the Bucs and Baker Mayfield.
Playoffs.
So I went gold, Baker Mayfield.
I like it. The bake sale was open, and he was cooking. So I like that one. And you probably already know, but my gold was Jordan Love. We'll talk about these guys later, so I don't gotta go too into detail there. Quarterback heavy.
Yeah, I mean, quarterbacks ball out, right?
Quarterbacks do ball out, but let's I think we're purposely going through our medalists real quick here because we have more frankly more interesting things to talk about. First things first, we do have to give some respect to a legend, Drake. Your legend too, Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce. Now, I will say he did say on New Heights that
I saw that.
That's not a decision that he should make after a game like that. So he's still gonna think about it, but I do think he's probably done. And it's sad,
Man, watching that game, I was like, this is his last game. It was specifically one play where Vita Vea swim moved the living fuck out of him and went right past him, and Kelce kind of fell. I was like,
yeah. I mean, dude, honestly, the Eagles O-line got torched that game.
They did.
So bad. And Jason Kelce included. It sucks that it'll probably go out like that, but I mean, he's getting old, man.
Yeah.
Can't play offensive line forever. He's one of the greatest offensive linemen in general, not just center. He's one of the greatest centers, but he's one of the greatest offensive linemen ever. So
he's probably the most famous.
Yeah.
But I would agree that he's one
of
them.
Him and Trent Williams, who else gets any coverage? Zach Martin's great, but he doesn't get talked about much.
No.
Quentin Nelson, I always was vocal about him, but who else? I guess Taylor Lewan back a couple years ago got some sort of coverage, but Joe Thomas, yeah, but Kelce's probably someone that will still be relevant for the next couple years being talked about, at least, even if he's not playing.
I think that's fair, especially with New Heights. I like New Heights. They do a good job.
Me too. They do.
Well,
and I like both Kelce brothers in general. So,
yeah, I do too. So we'll kind of wait to see what his final decision is there, like you alluded to with you don't want to make that decision in the heat of the moment after a very emotional loss. So we'll probably revisiting that. When I wrote that originally was before I saw the New Heights thing, but so we'll come back to Kelce. We'll definitely come back to Kelce, but let's go through a little wild card review here. And specifically, Drake, I'm asking that you have one takeaway for each game, not
one
or. All right.
Who knows?
Oh, my Lord. Okay. So we're going to go in chronological order of when they happened. So,
okay.
First up, I got Browns Texans. Drake, do you want to take a lead?
You go ahead for this one.
All right. So we're obviously going to talk about Stroud a little bit later since we're talking about the future here. But my takeaway was for the Browns. And I'm not the first person to say this, but that Browns defense away from home, it's just not the same. You look at the numbers all season, you see a trend. I kind of ignored it and thought maybe it was more circumstantial than anything, but wow, they were getting torched. And credit to the Texans, obviously, for sure. But for the Browns especially, even They couldn't get any pressure. That defense went from looking like, the Freddy Krueger haunt your nightmares team to the, getting haunted by the Texans. So that was my main takeaway, was that Browns defense away from home, just not the same.
Yeah, Mr. Depoy frontrunner had no tackles.
You would see it like that.
But, my takeaway is that, man, the Texans are dangerous. They are dangerous. We kind of said they were feisty.
Yeah.
But they're dangerous. And they will be dangerous in the future. Like next year, they're going to be a playoff team in our predictions going into next year.
Probably.
So yeah, Texans are dangerous is when I took away. Like I said, we've said they're feisty. Maybe they can squeak a playoff. As it went on, they're not a playoff team yet. Maybe they can squeak a playoff game. Oh, now they're feisty. Now they're dangerous to me.
Good thing you picked them and not the Browns.
I know. I do want to say I was 5-1 for my pick this week.
Yeah, I had a rough week.
Let's do a throw and give myself a little pat on the back.
No, Drake killed it. And I'm pretty sure, I want to say last year your playoff picks were also really good.
They were. I mean, if I was a betting man.
You're a parlay man. I hit one of my parlays this week. Shout out Mason Rudolph. He was the last leg to get one touchdown. I was sweating.
You probably seen that pick and you were like, oh, God.
I was a little worried at first. I was like, no way.
Mason Rudolph is back.
Man. But that's good. I already placed my parlay for this upcoming week, even though it's way too early to do it, but I did it anyway because I was excited. All right. So Texans are dangerous. I agree with you there. Let's move along. We'll talk back to the Texans again later. Kansas City, Miami. Drake, this time it's your turn to kick us off.
I took away, okay, I did put one for both teams. I apologize. That's for this one. Because, I couldn't. Because, Miami really is just a middle-of-the-pack team that cannot play in the cold at all. At all. And then, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs.
Oh. Still the Chiefs as in their championship favorites?
Still the Chiefs as in all year I've said they are nothing to worry about.
And now you're like,
not even just this game. I've been kind of feeling it as, Rashee Rice and Mahomes have been clicking. I've been kind of feeling it, but then playoff Pat is back, I guess.
He never left.
Yeah, because all that judgment I gave them was regular season, new team trying to figure it out, I guess. But
I agree.
I wouldn't say they're my Super Bowl favorites like they usually are, but I mean, it's tough for me to say that they're not counted out whatsoever,
Yeah. I mean, to that note, Mahomes is the only current starting QB in the playoffs who has won a Super Bowl. They're the only team that has that medal. I mean, the Bucs, you could say, they a good portion of that team, but not Baker. So,
yeah.
But I agree with you. Both of your points are well taken on the Dolphins side of things, which will maybe we won't be. No, we will be getting back to them again later, so I won't spend too much time there. But I agree with you there. On the Chiefs side, beyond like what you said as far as they're still the Chiefs, I do think their new identity as far as defense and running the ball and putting up points, that translates to the playoffs. That's we were worried about it because that also translates to losing games in the regular season that you probably shouldn't, like the Broncos or the Raiders. Yep. But in playoffs, that's what wins games, not what the Dolphins do as far as every play is designed to be a touchdown. That doesn't work. It just doesn't. Nope. Sure, you can go on a nice little run, maybe one off time if you tried enough years in a row. But what the Chiefs do is you can replicate it, you can duplicate it, and it travels well. So we'll get more into them again later. But that was my takeaway, was that the Chiefs' new identity translates perfectly to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Pacheco is, he's been the most consistent one on the Chiefs this year. Yeah. And, yeah, their defense.
It's legit.
Yeah,
sure I like it a lot. Okay, well, now I'm going to take the lead on this one. So, Packers-Cowboys. Dude, my takeaway is literally just that I was shocked all game long. Like, obviously, I believe in the Packers. You know that. And even though I picked against them, I was obviously rooting for them, and I thought we could upset them. But no. That is not what I expected. We go down and score first touchdown. It's like, okay, that's some juice. I like it. We get a stop. We go down and score again. I'm shocked. I'm like, all right, we've got a lead here now. All of a sudden, we're up 20-0 on the Cowboys. And every time we kept scoring from there, I'm just like this, just like shocked. And it just never, I was like, okay, when are the Cowboys going to wake up? And they just never really happened. It was incredible. It really was the youngest team to win a playoff game in the history of the NFL, or at least since the merger. It was a shock. The total dismantling of the Cowboys. And I know people are revisionist history saying the Cowboys stink, but going into it, no one was picking the Packers. So I was just shocked at every turn.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point. Like, obviously, I'm very vocal about how bad the Cowboys are. But you're right. Nobody picked the Packers. So that argument can't be really used. But my takeaway is that this Packers team has an insanely bright future. Well, obviously you knew that, but that was the first game that the entire offense was together.
A.J. Dillon didn't even play.
And they put up 40-some points. 48. I don't know the exact 48 points.
One of that was a pick six, so to be fair. But
okay, 42 points.
You talk about bright future. So I'm starting to be reminded of like a previous dynasty in the history of the NFL. And that's the 60s Packers. Just take a look at that.
Did you have that like ready to go?
So I was wondering how I could sneak it in, but I won this in White Elephant this year. John bought it. So Vince Lombardi, Bart Starr, and a lot of Packers legends from that 60s era. Okay, so I'm getting a little carried away with that. But yes, the future is very, very bright. And like you said, it wasn't just that it was the first time that they were mostly healthy, but the output, I'm pretty sure I saw a stat. It was like first time ever that a team in the playoffs scored 40 plus points, 400 plus yards, 0 punts, 0 turnovers. Like that's against a good defense. Like, yes, we match up well against them, but still we didn't do that to the Rams,
Mm-hmm. Or the Steelers.
Yeah. All right.
So we can be happy about, I guess.
Well, we'll get more into the Packers later, so I don't want to spend too much time there. It gets me giddy. So we'll move along here to Detroit and LA, and I'll let you kick us off here.
The Lions aren't a fraud.
No.
Mm-mm. And the Lions defense is legit. Like you said that the Lions were the last year's Vikings. No. Not a fraud. Vikings were a fraud last year. Straight up. Lions, because you know what? The Lions have a great defense. The Vikings didn't have.
Great?
Okay. Don't use emphasis on great.
They have a defense.
They have a defense. There you go. It's good. It's very good.
Yeah. I agree with you. They're not a fraud. And that was obviously a tough matchup for them. So them being able to come out on top, it means something. And my takeaway is that I wrote it down as the roar is loud, meaning that crowd in Detroit, man, you could tell that they'd been waiting 3 decades.
30 years, yeah.
Like they were starved, and that energy, plus obviously the Dan Campbell energy and just this team's identity, it carried onto the field, man. And I do still believe that Rams matchup was tough for them, but the energy around this franchise is so real, and it's loud. I'm kind of excited to see how it carries over against Tampa Bay next week.
So on that, just quick, mad fast question: did the Rams make the Lions make the right move?
What do you mean?
Stafford for Goff.
Well, you know how everyone's kind of said since then, like, oh, it was a win-win. But up until last week, it was like, was it really? The Rams got a Super Bowl and you're fun to watch. Like, like it wasn't a win-win. It was the right move because they were stuck where they were. Now, the Rams still win it until the Lions can get to a bowl. But
for sure. But, you also bring in Dan Campbell and a new offensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah, and it wasn't that long ago that when Jared Goff first got to the Lions, they started like 0-9 or something ridiculous. And everyone's like, oh, he can't win without Sean McVay. So it's funny how narratives flip so quickly.
I mean, he did say, that he was down bad after the Rams traded him. So
I believe it.
Now I think he's found his identity too, and they are fun to watch. But like you said, I mean, the Rams obviously do win it, but.
Well, I mean, this is already the best season the Lions have had since
ever
the beginning of Barry Sanders' career. Like it's nuts. So yeah, it is a win-win. It really is.
How about Pittsburgh versus Buffalo?
Steelers suck without TJ Watt.
We are pathetic without TJ Watt would be the word to use. But, we did fight that game.
Okay.
We got it to within one score twice. Just could not stop Josh Allen.
No, you couldn't. And I'll give you guys credit. You hung in there to where had Josh Allen done his usual give you one type of game where he throws a stupid pick or a stupid fumble, you guys could have easily tied it up at some point. So that was the right game plan for you guys to have as far as stick around and hope for a mistake. You guys just not as good as the Bills. And it's, that's obvious. Everyone knows that. And it was just clear that you guys all year have been a mediocre team that overperformed.
My takeaway, though, is that the Bills are Super Bowl contenders. And I have to eat that because I said that they were just the Bills. The Bills will be the Bills.
You did say that.
Well, if Josh Allen can perform the way he performed against us, where he plays a clean game, they're contenders.
Now that's interesting because that's your take on the Bills and then your take on the Chiefs earlier.
Exactly.
And then your Chiefs on the Texans being dangerous. And now all of a sudden, those are all the underdogs behind the Ravens. Man, the AFC is stacked.
I know, man. Because the Ravens, were my Super Bowl pick. So, trust me, this week's games are very hard.
Oh, my God. They really, really are.
Super hard.
This is one of the more fun divisional round playoff just overall pool that I can remember. So, I feel you there. Okay, so that's the Steelers portion. Again, we'll be circling back to a lot of these teams, or all of them, really. How about the capper for the wild card weekend, and that's Philly and Tampa Bay?
Philly's coaching is a problem.
A
running team barely ran the ball.
Bro. You're right.
I mean, and obviously that defense has no coordination.
No.
We've both said that's the most talented roster. We both have said that. Eagles meltdown is probably the worst that I can think of.
I agree. And we talked about that off the air. Like, I don't even know what to compare it to, because not only did they start so great, but like you said, best roster in football, arguably, them and the Niners probably, or the Ravens maybe sneak into that conversation. But they also went to the Super Bowl last year, and they're a young team that was ascending at almost every position outside of, Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox, but everyone outside of that is in their prime or ascending. So it was a shocking collapse. And my takeaway was that they didn't look like they wanted to be there. It was pathetic. It really was. Every time I was like, man, they like the Buccaneers are letting them, like, Buccaneers are selling for field goals. Like, if the Eagles really care, they can take this game, but they never did. And it was pathetic. And I think the coaching, I agree with you there.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you know what? Obviously, everything will fall back on quarterback play. Jalen Hurts had someone in his face every single snap.
Yep. Oh, yeah. They had no answers. All right. You know what? Fuck this. We're going to the chopping block. And you're on it first.
Man, yeah. So, obviously, the media is very vocal about 3 coaches being on the chopping block. Mm-hmm. Nick Sirianni is one of them.
Yep.
And Nick Sirianni definitely deserves to be on the chopping block for everything that, we both just went over. And clearly he's lost the locker room, because the locker room cancers, you could just tell that it's just, A.J. Brown, even Dallas Goedert looked like he had to blow off some steam towards Jalen Hurts. But, the only one who doesn't do that is Jalen Hurts. He just sits there and takes it. But there's a collapse going on the field, and I definitely think there's a collapse going on off the field.
I 100% agree with you. And on the field, you remember when they beat the Chiefs, and it was like, that was an impressive win right at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you ever saw the clip, but Sirianni walking off the field or into the tunnel, he's yelling at Chiefs fans. He's like, "I don't hear you now. See ya." Like, something like along those lines. They are 2-6 from that moment onward. Like, the collapse on the field is real and beyond record. We all saw it. Again, like you said, we saw them quit in that Bucs game. Blocking, pathetic. Scheme on defense, pathetic. Tackling, non-existent. It looked like they hadn't. Again, it looked like none of them wanted to play, but it looked like they hadn't played together as a team. And for a team that was so good last year and that went so far and probably should have won the Super Bowl, like, how can that happen? And going back to the coaching, this does fall on Sirianni a lot, because I think his emotions, he rides high and he rides low. That sets the standard for that entire culture, that it's okay to lash out when things aren't going your way. It's okay to be braggadocious when things are. And it's okay to just ride the emotional wave that comes with the NFL season and an NFL game. And because of that, once they got low, they were unable to respond. And that starts with Nick Sirianni. This is one of the most fireable offenses that I can remember for head coaching. And it goes back to the coordinator decisions this offseason. Both were massive failures. The offense was boring. The defense was a mess. Both of the coordinators that left now look like better head coaches than Sirianni. So I do believe that him being on the chopping block is absolutely warranted.
100%, justified for sure. And I think it has to come. Like, there are firings we were sitting around that we just knew were coming on Black Monday. This is one that is coming. Like, and I'm waiting for it. It's got to. There's no way you can keep him around. No way.
I know he's meeting with the owner this week. That was one of the recent reports. That doesn't sound good.
No. It's just like, I don't like calling for people's jobs, because obviously they have a job for a reason. I don't have a head coaching job, but it's like this Eagles team, like you said, this is one of the most fireable offenses that I can think of. Could
Yeah.
Ron Rivera have kept his job and I wouldn't care? Yeah. Can Nick Sirianni keep his job and I wouldn't care? No. Like, it's terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah.
The
And it,
season was a disappointment. The playoff game was a disappointment. The way that things have been handled have been a disappointment. Like you mentioned about the coordinators, that was a disappointment. What you could have done with this roster, and you just built off like teams build off of last year, right? You could have built off of what you had last year, and complete failure.
I totally agree. It feels overreactionary because this wasn't a storyline like a month ago, but just the amount that's gone wrong in that month is pretty concerning. Now, if he keeps his job, do I think they'll be garbage next year? No, that's not what I'm saying. But this has kind of set the tone that like when things go bad, is this the guy who can pull you out of it? Because one of the defenses that I've heard of Sirianni is that, hey, he's passionate. He's just passionate. What's wrong with passion? There's a difference between enthusiasm and actually caring. Dan Campbell is enthusiastic. I would follow that man. Matt LaFleur is enthusiastic. I would follow that man. Mike Tomlin is enthusiastic. I would follow that man. Nick Sirianni is erratically passionate. Like it goes beyond passion. It's just he's a big child sometimes with how he acts, and that's not who I want setting the tone of a culture.
Not at all. I would hate to play for Nick Sirianni, to be honest.
Whoa.
I would.
Maybe.
How about your other guy?
Yeah. Let's
Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy. My guy Mike. You know how I said
Big Mike.
It pains me to say if he lost to the Packers, he was out. I think he's out. I think he's out. It's going to be hard to go look at, man, how are the Falcons interviewing Bill Belichick and Jim Harbaugh? And we've got Mike McCarthy. And we're the Dallas Cowboys. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow. And I feel for the guy because he's built a strong program for Dallas. And, they're steady. 12 wins, 12 wins, 12 wins. But they're also 1-3 in the playoffs in that stretch. 2 of those losses being at home to lower seeds, obviously, because they were at home, and 2 of those being in the first round. Like their only playoff win was against the fraudulent Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were 8-9 last year with a 43, 44, 58. I don't know how old he was, Tom Brady. Like, I'm sorry, Big Mike. I really, really am, but you're going to go.
And I'm tied with him because I agree with everything that you said. That loss was very, very not supposed to happen.
That's one way to phrase it. Yeah.
Obviously the Packers they were a solid team, right?
Yeah.
Should they have went into Dallas and won? No. And I don't want to say that's what Mike McCarthy's known for, but it's kind of his reputation, and obviously the Cowboys have that reputation too lately. Is it Dak? Is it McCarthy? Is it ownership? What is it? Well, you got to figure out who it is. And do you let go of a franchise quarterback with just a head toss of maybe it's him, maybe it's McCarthy? Or do you get rid of McCarthy and see if someone else can win with Dak? Because that roster is very talented as well. I mean,
yeah.
And Dak plays well, but there's just something that won't get them over the edge. So I do think Mike McCarthy's job is also gone.
Yeah, I agree. And we both, despite all of the woes of the Cowboys, we both picked them to win the NFC 7 days ago. Like, this was a blunder. Make no mistake. This was embarrassing by Dallas. Like, they looked unprepared. They looked like they had no idea what type of offense the Packers would run. They looked like they had no idea the Packers would try to give the ball to Aaron Jones. They looked like they had no idea that the Packers would focus on CeeDee Lamb and try to slow him down. Like, it was just shocking how unprepared they looked.
No game plan at all. And
it really seemed that way.
Does that fall on Dak or does that fall on coaching?
That's on McCarthy. It really is. And my biggest gripe with McCarthy his entire career, he's so reliant on the talent he has on the team to where he puts together plain game plans and says, guys, we're going to go out and do our thing and we're going to win because we're better than them. You know who that works against? The Washington Commanders. That doesn't work in the playoffs when you play the big boys. Like, and we weren't even the big boys. Like, this isn't the Niners. No. That'd be one thing. But man, it's bad. It's bad.
It's, yeah.
I will say the fallout in terms of like memes and stuff that have come out of it are quite hilarious. Like, yeah, here we go. Getting on the airplane. Yeah, here we go. Getting in Cancun. Poor Dak. I still like Dak.
I do like Dak. I do think Dak is still a top quarterback in the league.
I agree. So if you're going to make a change, I do think it's got to be on the, we'll get there. We got It Takes Two coming up. So Drake, I will give the floor entirely to you to talk about your man, Mike Tomlin.
So you've asked me the last 2 weeks, right? Is Tomlin out? No. Don't really give an explanation, right? But after this week, and I just keep seeing it, I want to pull what Mike Tomlin pulled and just turn around and walk away. But is John Harbaugh's authority being questioned? Ever?
No.
Does John Harbaugh have any Super Bowls in the last 10 years?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that was 11 years ago.
Yeah, he doesn't. What about all the other teams that haven't won Super Bowls? So us not winning a Super Bowl does not mean that Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. Oh, you guys are just hanging around. You guys are middle of the pack. You guys are 500. You're not losing, but you're not winning. Tomlin makes us relevant every single year. That's what Mike Tomlin does. He makes us relevant. Yeah, but do you want to be relevant or do you want to win? We win. We're in the top of the toughest division in football every year. We had no business being a playoff team this year. No business at all. But Tomlin got us there. We were a playoff team. Were we the worst playoff team in the playoffs? Yeah, but we shouldn't have been there. And Mike Tomlin does the best with what he has. We have injuries every single year on defense. It's like our defense can never stay healthy. Fire Mike Tomlin then. You can replace players. Our quarterback has been an issue since Big Ben left. I do think that the last couple years, Big Ben stuck around, old and very immobile and just very relevant, kind of hurt us because now we got stuck with Kenny Pickett. But, you can replace players like Kenny Pickett. You can't replace coaches like Mike Tomlin. Now, we talked about, but with the Cowboys, do you fire Mike McCarthy or do you get rid of Dak? We don't have that issue because we don't have a Dak. We have a Kenny Pickett. But we have a Mike Tomlin who's kept us relevant for 15 years, 17 years. So I'm just not understanding why, and I said it to you too. We're the most trolled team in the NFL. Like, we got trolled so bad because we lost to the Buffalo Bills. That means that we suck. If we would have played, I don't want to say any other team in the AFC, but if we would have played Miami, we would have won. Browns, we would have won. We've beaten the Ravens twice. I just don't know how losing to the Buffalo Bills means that Mike Tomlin needs to have his neck strangled and kicked off the Steelers. So I don't see where all the coverage is coming from just because, oh, you guys are only a winning team every year and barely squeak into the playoffs. Don't you guys need to win a Super Bowl? Joe, when was the last time you guys won a Super Bowl?
14 years ago.
Are you firing Matt LaFleur today?
No.
If you guys lost to the Cowboys, would you have called for Matt LaFleur to be fired?
No.
So I don't know why Mike Tomlin needs to be fired.
I'll admit, I thought you were, for a second, you had me that you were going the other route with your little rant here because you're like, oh, I've defended him. Now, let me say, after this week, I was like, oh no, has Drake joined the trolls that are out there? But now let me play devil's advocate for a second, if you don't mind. So you said had you not played the Bills, right? That's kind of what you said. Like if you had a better matchup, you'd have had a better chance, right?
Yeah.
Why'd you play the Bills? You were the last team in. And why was that? Who did you lose to at home on Thursday Night Football? The Patriots, the worst team in the conference. Who'd you lose to at home at 12 o'clock on a random Sunday in Pittsburgh? The Cardinals. You can't blow those games and not have someone be responsible for it.
Our quarterbacks are responsible for it. We've had no quarterback play until Mason Rudolph came in and played savior.
I agree. I'm just trolling.
No, I know, but that's a valid argument like that people use.
It is.
You know, had we won those 2 games, yeah, we'd be a 5 seed.
Yep. You'd have been playing the Texans. I don't like that matchup either, but
that matchup I don't really like either.
You guys needed to play the Browns or the Dolphins. So
yeah, exactly. But, you know, we weren't supposed to be in the playoffs. Honestly, we weren't. But Mike Tomlin is the reason that we were. You know, he, like I said, in my little rant, he does the best with what he has. He's got no quarterback. He's got 12 injuries on our starting defense.
Yeah, you know, the Steelers, you guys are like a box of raisins. Like, at your core, you really stink. But Mike Tomlin is able to dip you guys in some chocolate to where, hey, this ain't bad. But at the end of the day, you still aren't a, caramel and cookie dipped in chocolate because at the core, you guys stink. But Mike Tomlin makes you guys better than you are. Okay, messy analogy, but I'm looking over at chocolate covered raisins down here. So that's kind of why that came. But
I mean, if you put that, you put that together right off the dome. So, I mean, props to that. Because it's very true. Like, literally, without Mike Tomlin, we would not be relevant. Like, we are relevant. Every year, we're relevant, which matters.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Now, some people might argue, like, that has hurt you being stuck in the middle. Like, you might be better off to hit rock bottom so that you could bounce back and see if you get back higher.
I do, slightly think that sometimes. Like, we should be, a number 1 pick. So we maybe can get a franchise quarterback that's not Kenny Pickett.
I'm really curious on what your moves are going to be for them when we do the It Takes Two coming up here.
But if we got down to where we're the worst team in the league, the Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. Roar would be roaring.
Yeah, it really would be. I think you're right.
I just wanted to get that out of the way because I haven't really went into too much depth. But after the Bills loss, it just got so loud where I was just like, I don't know how we're getting so faulted for losing to a team we had no business playing.
Yeah, I mean,
and we played well.
Yeah, you guys played admirably. It is a very good, like, way to sum up the Mike Tomlin Steelers experience in recent years of like played better than you would have expected, admirable, but lost, like in a meaningful game. So I get it. People are just using it as a vehicle to voice the opinions that they've probably been saying for months or maybe even years to this point. But I'm with you. I do think it's misplaced. I think you guys have been making your way with below average rosters to be above average teams for years now. And I don't know if it's a GM problem or what, but raisins.
Raisins. I like it. I mean, like I said,
raisins,
I mean, the way you put that together off the top of the head. And by the way, no, it's not a GM thing. Omar Khan, I like him.
It's got to be someone, dude. It's gotta be someone.
Dude, I'm telling you, we brought in good talent that got hurt.
Find some more durable talent then, damn it.
Yeah.
Well, the chopping block. I really hope Tomlin survives that. The other two, I don't know if their necks can be saved, but let's see if we can save these losers, huh? These playoff losers. And that brings us to a returning segment that's only been done once before, and that's it. It takes two. And again, inspired, huh?
We become GMs.
We become GMs. It takes two to make a thing go right. So let's bring it back. And we're going to go through again the playoff losers, and we'll do it again in the, actually, you know what? Screw going in chronological order. We're on the Steelers. We're going to start with Steelers.
You go first. No, let me go first.
Those are the options.
I'll go first. So my very first move is to wipe the coaching staff besides Mike Tomlin. We need newness in the locker room. We need a new OC. We need a new DC. We need a new quarterbacks coach. We need a new offensive line coach. We need a new D-line coach, a corners coach. We need a new strength coach. We need a new coaching staff, everybody. And then we're going to be good. And we need to bring it from the outside. We need to wipe everybody in there. Everybody. Like, you know what? Keep the box and fill it with new raisins. That's what we need to do. And the box is Mike Tomlin and fill it with new raisins.
No. Screw the raisins. This time you fill it with good stuff.
Oh, yeah. The caramel cookies.
Sounds delicious. All right. So does that encapsulate both of your moves, or do you have another?
No, that's my one move. That's move number one. And then move number two is you need to call, email, text, tweet, Instagram, DM, comment, call his wife, call his parents, neighbors, call me because I live right by him. Call Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I like it.
Don't let him go back to the team. Play in the black and gold, Kirk Cousins.
Dude, just send him like a bunch of like plaid shirts and you're set. Side note, I didn't know Kiara was such a big Kirk Cousins fan. Is that the quarterback show or something?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
You know, when you realize that he's just a very normal guy playing quarterback,
makes someone likable.
100%. I mean, I like Kirk Cousins too.
Yeah.
I would love him to be in an 8 black and gold jersey.
Sorry, Kenny. Well, Drake, I literally had the exact same things as you. One suggestion, I think you should have led with the Kirk thing so that, you know, number one is Kirk, and then number two is we're going to wipe the staff. All right. But I said the exact same thing as far as the staff. But like you mentioned, from the outside, you need new perspective. Honestly, the only coach you guys should keep right now is Tomlin. Everyone else, get out. Maybe you can keep your wide receiver coach. You do pretty well there, but everyone else.
No, even that. Like, you know what? You are in the old culture. We need a new wide receiver coach.
Right. And you're part, maybe you're the reason George Pickens is such a big baby.
he started snapping after he became a big baby. So you know what? Maybe that's
True.
just some sort of fire that we needed that we didn't have. Najee Harris too. Najee Harris was very vocal about he hated what was going on, and then he had 400-yard rushing games.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That was one nice silver lining down the stretch is Najee reemerging.
we started using him as a downhill running back.
Yeah. I agree.
Which is what his strong suit is, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I like
totally
Najee
agree.
Harris. I like the Najee Harris, Jalen Warren 1-2 punch. It could be very good. Our offensive line exceeded my expectations run blocking. So wipe the coaching staff.
No more raisins. All right. Raisins were perfectly fine as grapes. All right. Speaking of sour grapes, no, I'm just kidding. But let's go to the Browns.
I was gonna say, where are you going with that? Because
I wish
I
I
had
had
no
That was
idea.
a great transition, but yeah, Browns. So you led with the Steelers. I'm going to lead with the Browns, and both of my things here for them are going to be a little not controversial, but unpopular. So first one, draft a running back. And while I have full hope that Nick Chubb comes back as himself, or at least like 90% of himself, or whatever it is, it was pretty clear that despite the efforts of Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford, those are just guys. Those are just guys. They need another difference maker on that running back room because whether Chubb comes back fully ready or not, you need to have more than one good running back essentially in today's NFL. So that's first. Second, and I thought about this one for a long time. So obviously Joe Flacco went on a nice little run here. He's not the guy next year. He's not. He's not.
Mm-mm.
Don't even fool yourself. Like, sure, can you have him on the roster in case things go bad? Sure. But you have to make it work with Deshaun Watson. So you need to just let him loose next year. Let him loose. Either he flails and you cut him and you eat the money, or he does well and all of a sudden you guys are as good as you were this year or better. But either way, you need to let him loose. He needs to get out of this like fitting him into a box thing. Like, treat him like the talent he once was. And if he flails, cut it. It's over. But you got to see what happens. And that's just what I think about the Browns because they are in a tough spot despite how good of a season they had.
So, we should be GMs because one of mine was let Deshaun Watson be Deshaun Watson. And if he can't be, figure out what you're doing at quarterback.
Yeah.
And then my second one was kind of, a joke, but kind of not. Like, they need to hire a better strength and conditioning coach or a trainer or something to just keep them healthy because I think they were the most injured team in the league this year, and that hurt them.
Yeah. I think, that killed them because their old line was just banged up. Even in that game, Batonio went out pretty early. I don't know if he came back in or not, but.
And obviously, you mentioned Nick Chubb. Obviously, that was a little different, but, they had a lot of injuries on defense, offense. Obviously, they went through 4 quarterbacks.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe they need to hit more at practice.
Maybe. I think a lot of teams need to do that, but let's go on to the Dolphins. This one's kind of harder, I think.
I agree because, they have a good coaching staff. They really do.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of Tua, right? Because who are you really going to bring in that's better? Kirk Cousins, maybe. So start practicing in the cold because you're terrible when it drops below 40.
Yeah.
It is their identity. It's Mike McDaniel's identity to be a home run hitter. See if you can still incorporate that offense, but just add some second down plays that aren't so heavy hitters. Take your shot on first. get a chunk on second and then take another shot on third if that's who you want to be. You got to incorporate both because the heavy hitter thing, it's just going to keep you where you are.
I 100% agree. And again, we're on the same page here. That to go off what you were doing, my first point was self-scout. Like, look at that, like you just said, with the home run hitting mentality. Like, you guys could benefit from hitting a few singles. You really could, because not every game are you going to be able to hit 6 home runs and put up 40 points. Like, it's just not going to happen like that. So self-scout, that's first of all, as far as you meant, as far as like what the play is designed to do. Situational football matters no matter how badly someone doesn't want it to. But also, Mike McDaniel needs to self-scout on how he approaches the running game. Now, they ran the ball well, yardage-wise, touchdown-wise, big plays. But rarely do they stick it out. Do they run it 25 times, cloud of dust football, playing a tough mentality? Rarely did they do that. And I think it made them a finesse running team to where it's outside zone, sweep, toss. Not a lot of inside runs, not a lot of halfback dive, not a lot of slam, smash, whatever. I think they could incorporate that.
And, the 49ers offense, they make it big off of outside zone and toss and that, but they have exactly what you're saying. They also have the mix of the up the middle stuff, in between the tackle stuff. They have that in there too. So didn't mean to cut you off, but
No.
I just wanted to say, like, that's that scheme, but you can't just use that, like you're saying. Like, you have to do the in between the tackle stuff as well, which they didn't. Obviously Mozart and A-Chain were very effective on the outside. Make Mozart be effective on the inside. I know that's when he gets hurt, is when he does try to run up the middle, because he had a phenomenal year this side strictly being outside the tackles. But then, you know what? Bring in a Jerome Ford or something who can be just a name that will get you 3 to 6 yards on up the middle run.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's exactly the route I was going there. Now, the other thing you said, like, you can't replace Tua, which I agree. Like, you can't pay him, but you also can't replace him. So my point here is consider drafting a QB in the first or second round if one falls to you. And consider going the route of having them sit as you finish evaluating Tua on if he's the guy long term. And if he's not, you have someone who's had a year within the system and can hit the ground running from there. At worst case scenario, it infuriates Tua and he gets salty and he wants out or whatever. Well, guess what? Then he doesn't have the mental toughness to be the guy that you want anyways. So that's worst case scenario, and everything else other than that is hopefully beneficial to where maybe it's the Tom Brady, Jimmy G thing where they bring in Jimmy G. It kind of lights a fire under Brady, and eventually you trade away Jimmy G for whatever you can get. I do think that's something that should be on their mind because, like you said, there's nothing you're going to find on the open market in the near future to replace Tua. But also, I think you really know he's not someone you can commit $50 million a year plus to.
I do agree. Like, the Packers do that very well, right? You draft a quarterback to play behind your starter, to learn, and then guess what? Look at what you get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I agree. You can't just, unless you get generational talent, but like, who even, Lamar? Like, Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. Lamar even sat behind Joe Flacco. So it's like, who comes in?
CJ Stroud.
Kyler Murray, I guess. But he hasn't, taken a next step. Like, I like Kyler Murray. I do. But he hasn't taken that next, let's be a contender step. Obviously, Justin Fields hasn't. So it's like, you can't. Kenny Pickett hasn't. I don't really believe in that. I know it's how it goes, but I don't think that works anymore where you draft a quarterback number 1 and he goes out and beats a starter and now he's Patrick Mahomes, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, or changes the franchise. Obviously, CJ Stroud is a little different, but I like that point. Where I'm going is that I like that point to draft a quarterback, sit behind Tua, see if you have the next guy, or see if Tua performs, and then you just have a guy sitting behind Tua.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to tick him off because unlike what the Packers do, Tua's not old. He's very much young. Like he hasn't even gotten a contract yet. So yeah, you're going to tick off your QB, but how he responds is going to tell you a lot about like what you're still waiting to find out anyways. So I really would consider that. That would be a hard decision to make, but I think it's the right one. Now, if Kyle were on here, he might be like, "You guys are, crazy. Tua's the GOAT."
No,
But
he ran away from that. Remember?
no, yeah, you're right. Now, what sucks for the Dolphins is like if they can't play games at home in the playoffs, like they're never going to be a true contender. But that's why these things matter for these two moves to make things go right next year. And maybe they can have home playoff games. Like had they not totally capsized this year, they would have had it. So let's pivot away from the Dolphins. Let's go to the Cowboys now. We talked about them a little bit, Drake, to this point, but what do you got for them for their two?
I really only have one, and that's let go of Mike McCarthy because I just don't know what else it is, man. I don't know what else it is. Trayvon Diggs getting hurt them a lot. Stephon Gilmore got torched this week.
You did.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's just wipe the coaching staff too, but
I don't know.
Go get Belichick and Derrick Henry.
That'll do it. Yeah, I like the Derrick Henry route. I avoided the coaching question on them for the takes two because I think that's going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
You mentioned Henry. I said overall sign a bell cow running back. Like I really liked Tony Pollard a year ago, but he's not a number one, and I thought he could be, but he's not. At least not there.
I've said it so many times that Zeke made Pollard great. He did. And I was right.
And you were right.
Did Zeke fall off? Yes, but Zeke did what he needed to do for the Cowboys. And they missed him this year. Because they didn't get those 3 yards a carry to where they had a 3rd and 3, a 3rd and 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and they couldn't wear out defenses either. Like Zeke, even if he was only getting you 2 yards, like that takes a toll to tackle a Zeke, And I took it for granted from the outside. And I think the Cowboys did too, especially because not just Zeke's side of it, but also just they didn't try to replace that production anywhere. Like Dowdle, the rookie, like giving him some touches here and there. No. So that was first and foremost. Sign a bell cow running back. Now, the last point, I said emphasize, all caps, size. Emphasize size. Get bigger as a team, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, because the Cowboys' weakness for pretty much every year under Dan Quinn, even though I think he's a really good D coordinator, is getting ran on up the gut. Aaron Jones had his way with that Cowboys defense. Packers O-line was creating truck lanes. Like Packers O-line is much improved, but dude, like it was like watching them play the Niners. And we saw what the Niners did to them earlier this year, like just ran up and down the field on them. They need to emphasize. They need to get bigger as a team. I think the NFC is so much about strength and brawn, while the AFC is more of a mix of play styles. But the NFC, think about it. The Lions are a tough team. They're a tough team in the trenches. Big, strong running backs, big, strong linebackers. The Niners can punch you in the mouth as good as anybody in the league. Who else would be contenders in the NFC right now? Like even the Buccaneers have a little bit of a smash mouth mentality going to them this year, and the Packers have been able to grow and be stronger in the trenches too. Cowboys need to realize that's where they're currently lacking, and maybe that's why they fall flat in the playoffs all the time, because they're built for the regular season.
Well, as you're rolling, I'm going to let you roll with this one too, because I left this one blank because I didn't watch enough of the Rams to have an opinion on this one because I have no idea what they should do because I didn't watch enough of them.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the Rams should do? I'm gonna, as co-GMs here, I'm gonna back this one out and I'm gonna play backseat to this one. So I'm just gonna
So,
agree with whatever you say.
well, for the Rams, honestly, I have points written down here, but basically it's stay the course. Like, keep your picks. Like the picks from last year, obviously Puka Nakua being the shining example. They're working. The youth is good. Keep investing, but now use your blue chip picks to bring in more premier players. And my other suggestion was put that towards the O-line and the D-line, honestly. They need to invest in their trenches. They're a little soft in there, I think. They've gotten better than they were a year ago, but they're lacking blue chippers outside of Aaron Donald when it comes to both sides of the ball in the trenches. So stay the course as far as this youth movement to surround Matthew Stafford with, but invest those picks in the right spot. But otherwise, I like the direction of their franchise. I don't have a ton of like, oh, you need to go out and get this tight end or you need to go out and get this safety. Like, I actually like what they're doing as long as they can bring in another good D coordinator when they lose Raheem Morris, as he probably will get a head coaching job.
And then I'll just take this one and we'll go with the Eagles. The Eagles, I said you need to cut the locker room cancers like AJ Brown because AJ Brown had cancer.
Whoa.
Not cut as in like release, but cut ties with them. Move him.
Is he the new TO? To where he's just phenomenal, but like everyone's like, God, I'm sick of him. Get him out of here.
I mean, just the way he's handled the Eagles' downfall is just obviously it's frustrating, but like I don't know, man. It's been pathetic, I guess.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's battling an injury right before a playoff game where he's out.
I won't question that because I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. But my question for you, Drake, is would you keep A.J. Brown if you were able to somehow, obviously it's taking a lot of shuffling of the deck here, but you kicked out Sirianni and you brought in Vrabel, would you keep A.J. Brown?
Probably.
Yeah.
If you wipe the coaching staff, I'd keep A.J. Brown. If you could get some, I don't like we've said with Sirianni, he's just not a leader. You know, he's not someone that I'd follow to the championship game with, you know. He's not one where like Antonio Pierce where I'd be like, cut me if he's gone, you know?
Right.
So if you wipe the coaching staff, then see if we can get a change with that whole off the field stuff that's going on. And then for them, I also said to get Derrick Henry because it just looks like it would. Every year, it's like, oh, get Derrick Henry for the Eagles, right? If Derrick Henry went to the Eagles, they'd be scary. And they would be. You know, if you can keep Swift and have Derrick Henry and DeAndre Swift, that'd be a 1-2 punch that, you know, we were talking about the Cowboys would have needed. You know, a bruiser back and then a DeAndre Swift type of back, which would be good if they can fix the O-line too, but that's more than two, so those are my two. Get Derrick Henry, and it was move the locker room cancers, but if you can wipe the coaching staff and bring in someone that can change that, then that would just be the move.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went the coaching staff route too. I kept it general. Take a hard look at the coaching staff as far as whether that starts at Sirianni or if that just extends to the coordinators. Either way, they need to really, really look at that. And the other thing is, I think they need to prioritize the O-line again. Like they're Kelsey probably retiring, and then Lane Johnson is quite old to this point. So they need to start, you know, they need to stop drafting every Georgia D lineman that's available and start drafting some O linemen because, you know, that's what was the strength of their team last year. And that could change very quickly.
Go get the Georgia O-line this year.
Wow. You have a Georgia O lineman, don't you? Broderick Jones.
Yep.
There you go.
Dog. Absolute offensive line game changer. Him and Isaac Sumalo from the Eagles, dogs,
Dog.
game changers.
Well, we're done talking about losers, Drake. We're talking about the future.
The future.
Yep.
Back to it.
Wow. I thought about making that the title, and then because this is the first playoffs since '98 without Peyton or Brady, so kind of back to the
And it is
future
back
in
to
a
it,
way,
I
I
guess.
guess. Yeah, but
Rodgers too. Not like, but yeah.
all right. Let's talk about these future or at least emerging superstars, starting with CJ Stroud.
Dog.
Drake. Dog.
Stroud is going to be both of these guys that we're going to talk about solidified top 7 guys, probably top 7, top 8. Off the dome list, maybe higher. Who knows? But CJ Stroud has changed the Texans. Obviously, I've been very behind D'Amico Ryans, but if D'Amico Ryans had Davis Mills back there, they wouldn't be in the playoffs.
No.
CJ Stroud has changed the Texans. He's changed. He's a leader. He's coachable. He's good. He's not a normal Ohio State quarterback. He's a winner. Smart. I just, he's going to be, him and Jordan Love are going to be top 5 guys.
They're going to be the future.
The future.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you said. CJ Stroud has just been incredibly impressive to start his career.
And just for a disclaimer, I was right about him too, Joe.
You were. And you know what? You know what? Since we're on the Drake was right train, I was saving this. Let me pull up some. There you go.
How good Jordan Love turns out as well. So it kind of is a wait and see on the standpoint of who won the train. Because it's football. So many things could happen. The Jets could be awful, and the Packers could win a Super Bowl. So
whoa, Drake called it. Drake called it almost a year ago.
Look, I don't like to brag, but I think I make pretty good takes. Okay, they're usually pretty right. So you got something to look forward to. But I did say that Jordan Love. I like Jordan Love. I do. I still do. I did. I just didn't know about him. And yes, he started rough. And but I would never. I don't think I specifically said he's terrible or anything like that. I never jumped ship on him. It was
Maybe
just a
to me
waiting thing
personally.
to see.
You probably talked shit, or I know you talk shit about him to me, like one-on-one.
Always, I got to. Like I said, don't make me hate Jordan Love like you made me hate Aaron Rodgers.
Go.
Anyways, you talk about CJ Stroud now.
Yeah. I know I jumped the gun with the J Love thing. I just couldn't hold it in any longer. All right. CJ Stroud, I've said it before. I'll say it again. When someone proves me wrong, I am in their corner 100%. I will be their biggest pom-pom waver, their biggest cheerleader once they prove me wrong. And he did that like 2 games in. And I was like, man, this guy's good. And he broke the Ohio State trend because he's the first one who's been able to do things like outside of that scheme, which is part of what's been so impressive about him this season. And early on, even if he hadn't done this playoff thing, early on, I was sold because he was doing this when their O-line was banged up. He was doing this with receivers who at the time were no names in Nico Collins and Tank Dell and a washed up Robert Woods and a mediocre Dalton Schultz and a underperforming Dameon Pierce. Like, he was doing it in spite of all of that. And then once this team started to click a little bit better, it was like, boom, superstar, MVP conversation. It's it's been really incredible to watch. And the fact that he diced up that Browns defense in his rookie playoff debut. I know I talked about how the Browns defense didn't travel, but come on, man. Like those were some dots. I was thoroughly impressed. And that says a lot because, as you know, I'd been laying down my sword as far as being wrong on him from the pre-draft stuff. So I can't say enough about him. And just even his interviews after the game where he's just this big team guy. He's like, credit to my teammates and we played hard and, I fight for these guys, saying like all the right things. And it's like, man, that's a quarterback, man. That's a quarterback. So
very humble too.
Yeah.
Man of God.
Yeah. Yeah. He gave the credit to exactly. And that's, always something that humility. And I've got a little Jesus shirt going on here too. So since you bring that up, but
I noticed it right away.
Sure. Classic shirt I've had for like too long.
I've got the same shirt.
No, you don't. Do you?
Yeah. I don't have it anymore, but I had that shirt.
Okay. Well, now that it's not 2015 anymore, we're talking about the future. So yeah, CJ Stroud, we could just sit here talking for 20 minutes about how great he is.
Dog. And, I just want to say again that I was completely right about him. Completely. In our mock draft, I said I would take CJ Stroud number 1 overall, but I know the Panthers are going to mess it up and take Bryce Young. And I know you're not out on Bryce Young yet, but he's not nowhere near on CJ Stroud's level.
No, I agree with that. I'll abandon that take forever. It's buried. It's dead and gone.
Who did you compare CJ Stroud to when we did those ratings? When we did the comparisons? Do you remember?
Who did I compare? I think like Jared Goff or something. Now I would probably compare Bryce Young to Jared Goff based on like the start. Because Jared Goff kind of started like that too. While Stroud, I don't know. I'm struggling for a comparison here. Young Russell Wilson, prime Russell Wilson, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. He's a beast.
Yeah, dog.
Now, another dog.
Big dog.
Jordan Love, man. It's all you need is love. And obviously I've been, giving him flowers pretty much every week with like medals and stuff for a while. But it was pretty early on where I was like, right after the struggles, like I've said it before, like that Steelers game, despite the fact that he threw 2 interceptions and we lost, I was like, this guy's got it. I like what I see in this guy. Like I'm excited about his future. And then he still blew away my expectations in the 2 months since then with what he's done, and had arguably the best playoff debut of all time, like this past week, when you consider the fact that he was on the road and that he was the 7 seed and that he was playing like a statistically like 5 to 10, top 5, top 10 type of defense, and that he just had his back against the wall and he didn't care. He came out fighting. He's got a lot of arm talent, as we continue to see. He's another humble guy, and he gets along with everyone on the team, and people like Jordan Love on the Packers. Like you could tell that even before the season. So Jordan Love leading this very young Packers team and taking them to heights that no one really saw coming, as far as even just making it to the second round of the playoffs. It's been powerful because this Packers team had no expectations, and that is part of what I think makes them so special. And Jordan Love now with the expectations, I'm excited to see how he responds to that. But I said it towards the end of the year, the last box he had to check for me before I'm ready to give him any dollar amount he wants was, can you win? Can you perform well in playoff type games? And he answered that by being nearly perfect against the Bears in a win and in situation. And then was perfect until the last throw he threw against the Cowboys. So Jordan Love, I have not enough good things I can say about him.
I know I was giving you a lot of shit that night of the win, but I'm high on Jordan Love too, like something that like sticks out that he's not really getting talked about is you can just tell that Jordan Love is very coachable.
Yeah.
And that's something you want in a quarterback. Just the turnaround, like that's just like the Eagles fall, like the Jordan Love turnaround, that's also something that I can't really think of what I can compare that to, because in the beginning, he looked like maybe this isn't the future for the next 10 years. Now he's the future for the next 10 years for sure. And I think what separates him from Aaron Rodgers is that he is very coachable. I feel like Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers was a little, what would you call it?
Stuck in his
I don't know what-
ways.
I don't know what the word would be, but like very like a rebel, I guess.
Arrogant, rebellious.
Like
He's a problem
yeah.
with authority.
So, and I feel like that might maybe be why you guys didn't get over that hump again. And Jordan Love, I can see, is very coachable, and he's gonna take what the coaches give him. Obviously, he was doing that at the beginning, and I still think that Matt LaFleur went up to him and said, "Do you?
Yeah.
You got the arm? Do you? We'll put a receiver where you want." This is whatever however Matt LaFleur said it. I think he gave him a little more leeway, and Jordan Love is performing like a top 5 guy the last 2 months, month and a half. I do think that him and CJ Stroud are interchangeable with where I would rank them. I guess it's preference, but I like them both, man, and they're both the future.
All right. You're with me for a moment, kind of cutting in and out on my connection.
I seen that.
Yeah. I caught most of what you were saying.
Most of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I pretty much just said that I like Jordan Love. He I don't know if you heard, but I said him and CJ Stroud are pretty interchangeable with where I'd put him on a ranking. And they're the future, to be honest. I'm really hoping that, that maybe one day, hopefully, that could be a Super Bowl matchup.
That's a big take Fur's been having for a couple of weeks now. So shout out. Yeah, I agree. Very, very similar. It seems so far in terms of like their overall talent levels. And it's hard to say who's better to this point based on how they've been able to perform over the past couple of months now to this point. And my last point on Jordan Love before moving on. Well, at first, I do want to defend Aaron Rodgers. Like I'm, I still have nothing but love for Aaron Rodgers, but I do think there's something real as far as like not being super coachable or just generally being stuck in his ways. And that's a lot of people that are massively successful is they're like, I was massively successful for a reason. I've done this for 10 years. I've done this for 15 years. And that's a dangerous mindset. And it's hard to get back over the hump then if that's the approach that you have. So I do think there's something real there. Jordan Love certainly reminds me of a young Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers that Super Bowl year, Aaron Rodgers that first MVP year. Like he really does, just the way he plays. And I'm excited to see how it plays out here. I don't want to put too much expectations on his shoulder because, again, like the playing free of expectations has been a huge part of why he's been so successful, and the Packers have too this year. But it's hard not to with when you're putting out this type of an outcome.
Look, the Steelers had a better record than the Packers. I really just wanted to say that. But no, the turnaround the second half of the year and just winning the Cowboys game. This season's already a success for you guys. It's already a success for Jordan Love. This 49ers game, you guys just need to just let it rip, man. Like,
Yeah.
let it rip. You guys, this is a successful year. This is a win. Go beat them, just let it rip. And if you don't win, it's still a success, but just let it rip, bud.
I agree. This is the first time for the Packers since we won the Super Bowl that there's no such thing as failure. And that is so freeing as a fan. And I can't imagine what it's like just even like to be on the roster and have that too. Like that's such a great feeling. Now we do need to move along. So we're catching up on our, hour and a half, like max type of mark here. The other person I was going to mention for the future briefly was Rashee Rice. We touched on him earlier, so we don't got to get stuck there. Let's quickly make our picks for this upcoming week here, huh?
Let's do it.
All right. Now, Houston at Baltimore. Ravens are 9.5-point favorites at home. This is a rematch from week 1.
Baltimore, we have a problem.
Oh.
Houston Texans.
Oh.
Not Houston Texans. You know what? I rolled with my heart last week for them. I'm doing it again, man. I'm rooting. The Steelers are out. I'm rooting for the Texans all the way, man.
Wow.
They're my pick. That I'm cheering for in the playoffs right now.
It's tough. This is 9.5 points. First of all, is way too big of a spread. This game is going to be tough. So tough.
They're feisty. They're going to be feisty.
They're dangerous.
The Baltimore Ravens have something to be scared of.
I agree. And they could be rusty too. Oh, man. It is giving deja vu to when the Ravens were the 1 seed, Lamar's first MVP season. I'm rooting for them to be able to pull it out because if not now, when? I do have the Ravens 24-20 in a grinder. Sneaky dangerous, though. DeMeco Ryans got a good look at them earlier in the year, and that obviously didn't bode well for the Browns. So I do not feel great about that pick, but they are the best team in football, so they should win.
That week 1 matchup was CJ Stroud's worst game all year.
It was.
First game of his career, and they're playing a different CJ Stroud, man.
And the Texans have some very usable film. Obviously their game, but also Texans scheme is very Niners-ish. So they've got the Niners game. And the Dolphins are like an iteration of that scheme. So they've got like 3 legitimate games where they can be like, all right, this is how they respond to this rule that we do or that rule that we do. So it's sneaky dangerous.
The Ravens sat the starters against the Steelers. So they've had 2 weeks off.
Did not like that choice.
2 weeks off. Texans are hot right now, coming off a huge win. I just got to roll with my heart, man. I'm okay if this one's wrong. I'm giving my personal self a freebie on this one if this one's wrong. Just because I'm just rolling with the Texans right now, man.
I respect it. All right. The next Saturday game, Packers-Niners, another 9.5-point spread, obviously for San Fran here.
Like I just said, let her rip. Let her rip. I'm not going to pick the Packers. I'm going to pick the Niners because, again, the Niners should beat you. But you never know, man.
I agree. They should beat the Packers, and that's the expectation. And the Packers are free of expectation. Huh?
Can you guys win? Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pick the Niners.
And there's only one surefire way to make sure that we have a real shot. And that's for me to pick against the Packers. So I am going again with the same theme that is now 4-0. And I did the same thing every time. Packers lose, but cover the spread. And I'm doing it again. So I got Niners 28-24. Though the Packers are dangerous, they're dangerous. Play free. We no longer have the stink of Aaron Rodgers can't beat the Niners in the playoffs. Play free. Man, I'm excited for this game. No matter what. I love them no matter what the outcome is. So that's dangerous, but I am picking the Niners, and hoping it works.
I am going to be rooting for you guys.
Respect.
I just don't want you guys to go in there and play all scared, I guess you could say. Don't play all conservative or whatever, it is. Like, just go be what you guys have been the last month and a half, and don't act like you're playing the best team in football. Just go play. Go do what you guys have been doing. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Agreed.
Can't fail.
I agree. There's no failure in sports. All right. Tampa Bay at Detroit. Another pretty big spread. The Lions are 6.5-point favorites at home.
Got to go with the Lions. Again, for my boy XP, got to go for the Lions, man.
I'm pretty sure they already matched up this year, if I remember correctly, in Tampa Bay, and I think the Lions won. I'm also rolling with the Lions. 23-20. I do think it'll be a tough game, but the Lions they should win. They are the better roster, and they're at home. And
that crowd is roaring.
Yeah, it's roaring. It's been restored. So we're on the same page there. Last game, probably the best. Yeah, I don't know. There's some good matchups, but I think it's probably the best game between being Chiefs at Bills. Patrick Mahomes' first career road playoff game besides the Super Bowl at neutral sites. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites. They get different numbers on different sites, but that seems to be about the average that I saw.
Man, this one's blank on my paper because I've went back and forth, but I'm going to pick and I'm going to roll with my heart, and I'm going to go with Buffalo.
I respect it. And I disagree with it. I'm going with the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs in rematch games. I do. So they obviously matched up, a couple weeks back, and it's the Kadarius Toney offsides game. I think this could be a defensive grinder, man. I think these defenses are both real, and they both have special quarterbacks. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. And these are two teams that can play in the cold. So this will be a really classic game, and I'm really glad we get to see it. But I'm going to roll with the Chiefs.
Josh Allen's got to win one eventually, man. He's got to win one.
So does Dak Prescott.
I just mean against the Chiefs. In this type of game. If it goes into overtime, I'm going to go in and I'm going to scribble out my Bills, and I'm going to go with the Chiefs because Josh Allen can't beat Patrick Mahomes in overtime.
Apparently.
So, yeah, it's going to be a good game. I'm very excited for it. I'm expecting a good game, and these are two teams that can play each other. They are two teams that can play in the cold, but these are two teams that can play each other, and they can make it a good one. The script writers are scripting because this is what everybody wants to see.
They're cooking.
I gotta roll with Buffalo this time, man.
I respect it. I thought about it, but gotta roll with our punches.
Trust me, I've thought about hard for the Chiefs, thought about hard for the Bills, man. But what's crazy is my bracket with me picking Buffalo and Houston. My bracket from last week just doesn't exist anymore.
You abandoned it. If we were doing last year's strategy where we went like one round at a time, that'd be okay.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of.
That's why I like kind of going one round at a time, because then you pick like the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl and bracket buster. But this is Mad Madness and
Mad Madness. Well, maybe we'll see more Cinderella stories advance with the future that we talked about with our stars, but we'll see. It's a great week of divisional round matchups, one of the best that I can remember, so I'm excited. All right, well, we are over time with our, trying to keep things 90 minutes and under, but we had a lot of ish to talk about, so good stuff.
For sure. I mean, we only went 4 minutes over. Going to be 5 now. In the world of Drake, 5 minutes is on time.
25. All right. But thank you, everyone, for joining in, as always, for episode 55. And you know the deal. Check us out, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, all at Mad Talk Sports. Making some fun reels lately, and you get to see how Jordan Love is top 10, especially.
Yeah. Top 5. Or as
five.
Cole would say, top 2, not 2. Yeah, man.
Right. Well, that's a wrap.
Hopefully I get a winning week again this week. Let's go, CJ Stroud, man.
Joe Lamar.
Ouch. Well, that's a wrap then.
Till next week.